Go the Rams. Bah!
Adelaide to bring it out from their own line. And met by some very willing Auckland defence. And pushed back a couple of metres. Darren Wotto just goes from dubbing half, picking up Darren Doherty. 25 metres out from his own line.
As now the Adelaide Rams make their way out onto Marathon Stadium for the first time.
And welcome to our fourth episode of the Rampage League podcast. My name's Darren. I'm joined in the studio two gentlemen, and we'll start off with welcoming our presenter, Wotto. How are you tonight?
Doing good, mate. It's nice to be back and having a bit of a chat about rugby league with you.
Excellent. Always great to chat about rugby league with you. And our guest, someone who's been involved with league for forever almost, either as a player or in operations. Kelso McEwan, welcome to the Rampage.
Thanks, guys. Really excited to be here, actually. It's great.
Excellent stuff, mate. Well, I mean, I've known you for a little while now, but I haven't really learnt so much about your history. So can you tell us a little bit about where you come from and how you got involved in rugby league?
Yeah, no worries. I was lucky enough to be born in Inglewood, Queensland, but my parents did a really good thing by me there. After that, they moved me when I was about 4 months old down to Mildura, and then from there I ended up at a place called Menindee, out past Broken Hill and not far from Wilcannia, so right out the back of Burke there. Yeah, and I had a little bit of experience with rugby league. My older brother played, and one of my earliest memories are around sitting around the radio with my family, listening to Origin. I didn't pay much attention, but I do remember that. I fell in love with the game in '88. I happened to be in Warwick, Queensland on a family holiday when the Broncos beat Manly in the inaugural game at Lang Park, and King Wally scored 2 tries, and Alfie ran amok, and from there, mate, I just fell in love, and it's been the driving force and of my life ever since. And I've been lucky enough to be in the game, and it's changed my life, and it's even brought me. I met my wife through it, and things like that. So I've just been really, really lucky.
Excellent. And Darren, we're quite honoured this evening because we've got Rams royalty here. Kelso was a part of the under-20s development side when the Rams were in the national competition.
Yes, we should all get down. Down. Yes, we're very honoured to have you in the studio with us. That's awesome.
Thanks, fellas. I think Rams royalty is a bit much. I can remember when it all first sort of kicked off, and then all of a sudden, as a young guy, you're in rooms and and Kerry Walters, as a Broncos supporter myself, the first time I seen Kerry when he got to the Rams was in '96, and he'd already won 2 premierships with the Broncos, and just to see him and Brett Gallier and guys like that had all played at the Broncos. Alan Can,
the
2-try hero in the '92 GF, and all of a sudden those guys are at the club and
right here in Adelaide,
talking to you and come out for practice your passing and do some extra fitness, and it was just mind blowing.
Yeah. Excellent, yeah. And so you were there when it all started with the Rams. Can you tell us a little bit about what the hype was like here in Adelaide when the team came in?
Well, you got to remember that we had a false run, a bit of a false start. So there was a lot of hype around it to kick off in '96, and then if you're involved in Super League, you'd always remember the judge's name, Justice Burchett.
Oh yes.
Who came out and said it's not happening. So we all had to wait a year, but there was a big fanfare leading into '97 with the Adelaide Rams, and the inaugural crowd we got was amazing. But we were up against a pretty challenging too, because not only did the Rams get introduced to SA, that was Port Adelaide's inaugural year as well, I believe.
So it was, yeah.
And then that other mob, the Crows, they went and won the flag, and
they did.
Yes, it's a big year for sport in Adelaide.
Yeah, and the Crows did. They go back to back. 97, 98, and as you said, the power came into the comp. So it was very, very much an AFL-dominated city during that time.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, when the games kicked off, the paper had all the things about rugby league. What a scrum was, what a play the ball was, and at the opening couple of games, there was someone on the loudspeaker telling the crowd what was going on,
explaining the game.
Yeah, very much so. So it was interesting, but I still remember that first night, and we played before the main game, and for a kid from the bush, mate, it was just electric. At that stage I had been to Adelaide Oval, but to play in front of a crowd like that, the biggest crowd I'd ever played in front of was probably about 300 people.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, and to play another team like the Hunter Mariners at home, who were brand new in Super League, it was excellent.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, 27,435 people that day. It's good numbers for a town where rugby league wasn't really that known at the time. So to get 27,000 people down to the Oval to check out this new fandangled game of rugby league here in South Australia, that was brilliant.
Yeah, it was. Look, people bought into it, and still, I mean, the fact that we're sitting here on the Rampage and it's like a resurgence. So people loved it, and everywhere you go, if you mention it, someone says, I was a member and I went to the game and I've got this and I've still got the cards. And so, 28,000, and if you look at the average crowds they had over the next 2 years, they're well up on some of the crowds they used to get in Sydney.
That's right.
So, which is not uncommon for rugby league. We know that's not it's not like AFL where you have to fill every seat. It's a TV sport and supported by TV. But, there was a market, I felt, and unfortunately just, the game was, at that time, still political, but it was very political back then.
It
because,
certainly was.
We had two competitions and it was probably, I think everybody knew that wasn't sustainable long term. And bear in mind, I was 17, 18 years old, so I thought a bit different then. It was just all bright lights and superstars for me back then. I just couldn't believe where I was, living the dream.
Yeah, certainly. So, do you think that rugby league developed a following there, or the people already here may have moved over from the eastern states or from New Zealand and were here at the time? Or did you get a lot of people that said, I'm actually keen on this, I'll go and check it out, never had anything to do with rugby league before, and came along to the game and loved it, just like yourself?
Oh, I think it's a bit of everything there because, there's quite a few eastern staters here and, people from, across the ditch and England, everywhere. So, but there was also a pretty strong local rugby league competition. So, back in the 90s, and my first involvement with the SA Rugby League back then was 1995. They actually come up to Broken Hill and Menindee, which was the old Group 12, and they looked to strengthen the representative teams, and they took some senior players and some junior players. And so I had the great luck with other guys from back home to represent South Australia in 1995 the Australian schoolboys. And so through all that, where I'm going with that is that there was a strong competition with strong, lots of volunteers, and when I say strong, it wasn't thousands and thousands, but it was a bigger competition than we're currently running. And so I think there was a lot of people around that already liked rugby league, which helped. And then there was also that excitement about something new. And I'd argue with anyone, if you haven't actually watched a game of rugby league and then you go and you watch a game of NRL or Super League or whatever you want to watch, and watch the physicality and just how good a game it is, if you can turn it off, I think there's something wrong with you.
I know, right? Mate, I've been a league fan since the moment I stared at a TV myself, and I've liked other sports over the years, but nothing has really gathered my passion for a sport like rugby league has. And when I moved to South Australia, I told the story last time Darren and I were having a bit of a chat. You'd get one game a week, and you'd get the footy show late. Start after midnight. It wasn't really present on TV back then, so you didn't really get a lot of exposure to the game. No. So to have a strong competition at that time is great.
Just sit up till midnight, man. I can remember it myself, because I moved away in '98 and went to the Ipswich Jets, courtesy of Kerry Wild was getting me an introduction up there, and played a couple of years up there in the Queensland Cup. But when I moved back and you couldn't get a game on TV until sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning, and then they went to double headers on Friday night, and that was my whole Friday night. Was I'd go for a run at the end of that at 5 a.m. when it finished, because I'd be waiting up to see the Broncos. Used to play on Friday night, and it's funny when I look back at my old Facebook posts. There's quite a few that are whinging about Channel 9 not playing footy on TV, but now we can watch so much. It's great. It's everywhere.
Yeah, with apps like KO and that available, you can watch the replay. You don't have to watch it all live. Yeah, you can catch up on the footy as you need to, and with all the games available, the women's game available, it's really good to have that sort of accessibility to rugby league now. So, can you tell me, just a little bit about the past 25 years, how challenging it has been to continue the competition and try and build that growth and build a grassroots competition here in South Australia that can hopefully one day lead into a team in the national competition?
Yeah, look, so I've been, again, I keep saying the word lucky, but I've spent my life in rugby league, And, when I was a kid, I wanted to play in the NRL. So I didn't make that, but I get to work in the game. And I've worked in the game now for 13 years. Before that, I volunteered, I played, did all that stuff locally as well. And the game has grown at certain points, but it took a major hit after the Rams pulled out because the fanfare around it, the excitement, the filter down effect of, bringing those squads together. So there was the first grade squad, the 19 squad, there was a development 17 squad. That brought in local coaches to work with people like Grant Bell, Rod Reddy, Jason Gregory. So just outstanding coaches in their own right, good people that were passing on that knowledge and then going back to the local league. And, people wouldn't realise this, but Grant Bell, who was the inaugural coach of the Cowboys and renowned schoolboys coach in Queensland, he coached the local South Adelaide side in 1996 because a lot of people stayed here when it didn't go ahead. And so they filtered back in the local comp, and it was just, so it's challenging, rugby league in South Australia, but at the same time, when people ask me about it, I say, our people is just as passionate as they are in Brisbane or out the back of, Wilcannia or wherever. Like, our people are just as passionate, they love their rugby league, and, they continue to push to grow it.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you say, that passion is there, especially around Origin time. Yeah. We've sat down and watched a game together, and I might be getting my ass flogged. The Queenslanders are just doing what they do year after year, but I still keep coming along and still keep cheering and still have that excitement and passion for the game, win or lose. Yeah. Watching rugby league is just one of my favourite pastimes.
Yeah, well, look, you talk about Origin. We were lucky again this year. Well, to watch. To see Adelaide Oval, at almost capacity, to see what was a genuine classic Origin game, especially for Queensland, all the things that went against them, and mate, I can remember, just walking around the back of the stand and just taking a look. I work in South Australia in footy, so it's at the, I just sat in the stands with everybody else. I'm not important, but I had a tear in my eye just watching. 48,500 people and watching rugby league, and it's phenomenally good oval. Like, it is a beautiful oval, oval, and it's a special place to be. And it was a special night that Wednesday night. So I'm not ashamed to say I had a tear. It was that good.
Oh, mate, me too. Really, really feeling that energy, that passion for rugby league, and I don't think the atmosphere translated very well to TV. Because I got friends on the East Coast who said, they were pretty quiet. I'm like, mate, really? Because where I was sitting and from around the stadium, it was loud and people were into it.
It's a funny thing. So we all know, if you're a league lover, that the oval shapes don't fit our game great. But look, the atmosphere at the ground was outstanding. I'm not sure how it come across on TV, but you constantly read in social media where they're whinging people, they shouldn't have it in Adelaide, they shouldn't have it anywhere else but Brisbane and Sydney. Well, you know what? Bad luck. We loved it, and hopefully they'll get it again. And it's in Perth soon, and those sort of things are great for the game. Yeah, certainly. And I think if you're going to go expand the game and take it to places where it's not currently a big deal or don't have a team, you don't take the bottom four sides, the bottom two sides, and go and showcase the game. You take the top of the line game. Yeah, and that's what State of Origin is, Simon. It's playing for the Kangaroos, obviously, and if you listen to those blokes like Malman Inga and even Wally Lewis, they'll tell you that's the pinnacle. But probably the showcase of rugby league is Origin, and it's just, and it might only involve Queensland, New South Wales, but it lends itself to everybody. Everybody buys into it, and people that don't watch rugby league will tune in. They will tune in for those 3 Origin games every year, and it's got a life of its own. It's just massive. And it's known as sport's greatest rivalry for a reason, because it is one of those things over the past 45 years that people are passionate about it. Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I can remember watching on TV the highlights of a pretend Wally Lewis running around Lang Park spraying cockroaches, in cockroaches suits as pre-game entertainment. So, they built that rivalry early on, and obviously, everyone knows the story of Artie Beetson and Cronin in the Game 1, and it really sparked it, That's right. From the moment Origin started, it just had that passion. Yeah, it certainly did. So, bringing it back again to grassroots and trying to build rugby league here in South Australia, can you tell us a bit more about the RISE program and how it's helping to build the future stars and develop a competitive grassroots competition again here in South Australia? One that hopefully one day we can see a national team Look, Rise is it's been going about 3 years now. It's a national program for the NRL, and you have to understand that there's lots of rugby league around, and people have run all different types of rugby league academies, and nobody really knew what was going on, and everybody do their own thing. Well, the game looked at that and thought, we can do better than that. So they come up with the Rise program, which has got a little bit to do with the Kangaroos. That word Rise, that comes from the Melbourne Inga and the Kangaroos, but they translate it down to community football, and it's about giving every kid an opportunity so they can sign up to Rise. They not only do they get a rugby league component on field, which everyone expects, they also get what we call a life fit component. So that's run through the Griffith University in Queensland, and that's about our young people from 13, in South Australia, right, from 13 to 17 for males and females. And so the life fit part of that is about helping our young people navigate the world today, whether it be social media, healthy habits, all of those sort of things. And that's done online, and then some activities on the field to support that. They also get their strength and conditioning components. So they get to learn not only to get themselves fit if they don't have gym equipment. How do you do that sort of stuff? They get to also learn the proper lifting techniques in the gym. They, as well as all that, there's a prepare to play program, which is about your warm up, and for young people, it's about strengthening your shoulders, your knees, all those things that you're going to be using in a game of rugby league at a young age. And it's an outstanding program. The feedback when we run it here is the kids love it. The parents really like it, So from there, they get an opportunity. That leads into our CAS, which is our Combined Affiliated States. Mm-hmm. And so we're taking 11 of those players from Rise, the under-17s age group, and the kids below that will filter through to Sydney later in the year, where they'll join some other players and play against Victoria and WA. And those players have the opportunity to then be selected in what they call the CAS Academy, which is plays before Origin 1 generally. They go into a week-long camp, so they pick 35 kids out of SA, Western Australia, Victoria and Northern Territory. Those kids go into camp, they put them into 2 different teams. They take a lot of coaches as well, because the Rise program is not just about players, it's about coach development. They then coach them for the week, and they play the curtain raiser of the Origin, which you would have seen here. And we had two young guys in that this year, Henry Silk and Connor Golden, that played before the Origin here. And last year we had 3 participants that played over in Perth, Bobar Williams and a couple of the other boys. And one of the guys, Daniel Bowe, used to play for the Warriors. He got selected out of that and played in the CAS Australian Schoolboys. And then from there, he ended up playing 2 games in the SG Ball this year for Melbourne Storm. So the pathways here are starting to open up, and that's what Rise is about. So that's one, that's called Rise, and that's for our young people. Then there's another one is called Rookie Rise, which is about our female participation, and this year we had 40 participants in that. It's a very similar program in regards to the Rise program, but obviously it's about females 17 and up. If they're in the Rise program, then they can get selected through to our state side and go to the Harvey Norman's Women's Nationals. So it's really about linking those pathways together, and for us here in SA, we haven't had that for quite a while. So to start to see that for our young people and an opportunity to progress in rugby league, whether that's on the field or like I did, I got lucky and found a job in the game, and there's lots of things you can do in the game, but it's just about giving these guys an opportunity to better themselves as players, as people, and through a great game of rugby league.
Yeah, sounds like a great program, and teaching them some life skills as well as the game of rugby league, which is important, as you say. They've got to deal with these social media things that we didn't have to deal with 20, 30 years ago. It's important that they know how to handle themselves when they're online and learn these important life lessons. Yeah, well, it's as a coach and as a father myself, social media is just it's something that you've got to have your head around as a parent, because you don't always know what's going on, and we all know that. In the old days when we got bullied, you used to at least get to go home, and nowadays they can just get at people constantly. So and the pressures of social media and filters and looking good and all of those sort of things that go with it. So yeah, look, it's a great program. It's evolving all the time. They look at it every year. It's headed up by Neil Henry, who is a great coach in his own right. He was down earlier in the year, and so the Rise team, which is Neil Henry, Mike Castle, a couple of other guys, Brad Donald, the Gillaroos coach, they generally come down, put myself and the other coaches through the coaching component, so we can then, so we're getting upskilled,
we go on and then upskill more local coaches and more players, and it's just a knock-on effect.
Excellent. Growing the game from there and more opportunities for everybody. That's great to hear. Another opportunity that I'd like to ask you about as well is the touch or tag game that we've got developing here in South Australia.
I mean, so touch is still part of rugby league. I mean, we work in the same office together as Touch Footy SA and great people, and a lot of people play touch footy in SA. It's a great game. Our game is a little bit moved on from that. We play, our first entry point can be tag rugby league, which is where you wear the Velcro tags on your hips, and you can kick and the ball can be dropped backwards, and so it looks a lot more like rugby league. And for a chubby bloke like me, if I want to, I'm not getting through to, I'm not Benji Marshall, I'm not running past anyone in touch, let me tell you. But at least a little bloke like me, a little chubby fella, can end up on the far side of the tag, and all of a sudden I'm playing the game. So it's an outstanding way to get in the game without the pressure of being tackled and those things.
Sure.
And we know that. I was at a meeting last night with our local clubs, and everybody's going to jump on board and try and offer that game to people, because what it'll do is it'll give more people an opportunity to see how good the game is, and then that'll have an effect, hopefully, where some people will go, we'll try the tackle game, and so, but rugby league is more than just tackle, that, and the game wants people to know that.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah,
the skills they can develop in the touch game certainly cross over to the tackling game, and they can have an opportunity to understand the game and get a feel for it before they start putting the big hits in.
Oh, without a doubt. Well, if you look at the NRLW, you look at players, probably the form player in the NRL at the minute, Sean Johnson, is a touch footy player. If you look on YouTube at some of Sean Johnson's footage, it'll blow your mind. Same as Benji Marshall. There's quite a few in the NRLW that have come through from touch footy. So, we probably didn't think back in the old days that was a progression, but it seems to be. The skills carry across.
Certainly. And you've mentioned the NRLW. Just a curveball here. Do you reckon we might be able to see a women's team representing Adelaide sooner than the men's comp? Do you think that might be an avenue to be able to reach a national competition?
Look, I'd love to say yes. I really would, because, I've been lucky enough. I keep saying lucky. It's just a word. But, I've been working with our Harvey Norman's national squad for the last 3 years, and that's a really tough competition when you get there. And we've got a great coach in Marianne Longstaff, so I work with her, and they're working in the female space is amazing. It's very rewarding. They just want to learn, they want to work hard, and they've been waiting their whole life for an opportunity. And so they grab it with both hands. There's no ego, there's no chip on their shoulder. They don't think they deserve anything. They want to work for everything. Could we get a team here? That's a question for someone well higher up than me, but you could probably make a case that'd be a quicker and easier entry point than an NRL team.
Yeah. On that as well, with the women's competition, can you tell us a little bit more about the women's competition here in South Australia?
Yeah, look, it's a tough space. We've been going at it for about 4 years now. We have some really committed players, but we need more. So we played a women's season earlier in the year, and it's really about what female athletes have got now than they didn't have not so long ago. It's just amazing amount of choices. You can play any sport, whether it's footy, they're screaming out for people. So there's a lot of choice out there and a lot of competition. So for us, it's about trying to find where does that best fit. What does our customer want? Where do we play it? So early in the year, it wasn't as successful as we'd hoped. So we were going to run a shorter competition. This is really the first time anyone's hearing about it, actually, but it won't be long and it'll all be out there. I'm going to run a shorter competition at the back end of the year to see if we can attract more participants and expose more women to the game of rugby league. So I think it's probably a way, if we get it right, that we can really grow the game here.
Certainly sounds like we've got ourselves a scoop there. Darren, an exclusive.
It does, yes. This is good. This is great.
Again, bringing it back to the local competition, the men's competition seems to be doing really, really well at the moment. 6 teams in the competition, a bit more competitive as well. I see some of the score lines aren't as, those big blowout scores that we were seeing a couple of years ago. They're a bit tighter games and closer matches.
Look, 16. So we were really, this year, we through our Harmony Cup, where we play at the start of every year, and we found we were contacted from the PNG community. There's a lot of workers that are in and around Adelaide or around Border Town that have come over from PNG, and they're working hard and supporting their families back home. And everyone knows PNG's National Games Rugby League, so they approached us and said, they want to be in the Harmony Cup, and they won our Harmony Cup this year, which was amazing. Then the opportunity came to have those guys enter our senior comp, which means we get to 6 teams, everyone's playing a game every week, and they're sitting on top of the competition, and the competition's been quite close. I mean, our 2 probably strongest sides started a little slower than normal, but they're starting to hit their straps now. The Eels and the Warriors, they're the juggernauts of late, but the Swans in Murray Bridge, they've
come in, the last few years they've really shown that they can compete with the bigger sides.
Yeah, look, they're doing a great job this year, and they were on top of the comp there for a little bit. They're sitting 2nd or 3rd at the minute, I think.
Yeah, 3rd's the Swans.
3rd, but that's a really congested, the top 3. And then one of our 2 foundation clubs, the Bulldogs and the Roosters, really strong traditional clubs, have a lot of juniors. They're sort of rebuilding at the minute, but, I'll just, for instance, the Roosters, who probably started the year, and they were getting a few touch-ups and things, showing plenty of passion and commitment, but they've turned it around. They've got themselves a win. The games are getting closer, and so it's good to see the Roosters working hard and getting back and being competitive. And it's the same for Souths down at Mitchell Park. They've had a pretty good year, and change of coach, and so it's a bit new for them, but they're going great.
Awesome. And so we're looking at round 10 this week, Sunday the 6th of August, down at LJ Lewis Reserve, which is the home of the Eels. So we've got the junior game starting at 9 o'clock, the under 6s tag game.
Yeah, so under 6s, under our player development framework, our 6s start. That's our entry point. You play tag rugby league, and they love it. It's possibly the highlight of the day. It is to try and keep those under 6s on the field is amazing. You could fence them in and they climb it and run somewhere else. So you often see one of the coaches or the referee start yelling to the young blokes or the young girls, "Come back!" and they're 30 metres and running across the field. But yeah, it's great, and that then leads into our 8s play, which is the first point of tackle for our kids, and they're great games as well. There's quite a bit of skill in our under 8s. It's really good to watch, and our under 10s will play after that by about 9:50, which is where you start to see it look a bit more like rugby league, and there's four clubs with under 12 sides, so there's 2 of those games every week, which is really good. Under 14s, we don't struggle, but not every club's got a side, so we get 2 full sides every week, and nearly all of those kids are in the Rise program as well, and their ability, I referee them quite a bit, the 14s, and watching some of the skill on display and just how much the kids want to play it's what keeps me coming back every week.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess it's not just rugby league, it's all aspects of sport and life, I guess, is trying to retain those kids when they hit those teenage years and, they find other interests and there's so many distractions. Retaining those kids and keeping them involved in the game is important for the future of rugby league.
It is, and it's not, it's not something that we just face here in South Australia, because we do. Look, I won't sugarcoat it. It's around 14s after that we start. It's hard to retain those kids, if they're not playing different teams every week, or that's a blocker sometimes. And like you said, there's so many other things that they start to work. Kids start to. My 3 kids have all got jobs, and sometimes one of them has to miss training because they've got a job. And he's 15.
That's life.
It's just so those sort of things happen. But the opportunity to try and keep those kids playing the game, and it doesn't have to be tackle, it could be different forms, but just offer them stuff that keeps them, because we know, it doesn't matter if it's rugby league, it's any sport. You've got to be part of something. It's so important to feel you belong somewhere. And for me, that's been rugby league my whole life, so whether that's rugby league, soccer, footy, church, whatever, just belong somewhere and get yourself out there and do something positive.
Certainly. Well, thank you, Kelso. We're going to come back with you and we'll discuss the NRL competition a little bit further, but we might take a bit of a break, Darren.
You're listening to the Rampage League podcast with Wotto and Darren, brought to you by Oz Sports Radio. Welcome back. You're listening to the Rampage League podcast with myself, Darren and Wotto, and our great guest, Kelso McEwan, who's joined us in the studio.
Thanks for coming back with us, Kelso. And we want to have a little bit of a chat about the NRL SA competition. After 9 rounds, we got the Brothers on top with 14 points, 7 wins and 2 losses. Warriors and the Swans are both on 12 points with 6 wins. We've got the Eels on 10 points, still in contention to be able to make their way into a grand final. And we've got Bulldogs and Roosters, haven't had such a good year, but as you said earlier, they're rebuilding. And so, where do you see things unfolding here?
Look, round 10, Friday night, we've got Eels hosting the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs will be heading into Mad Monday after that, but the Eels will, they're a smart footy team. They've got a lot of good players. They're a strong team. I feel they'll prime themselves for the run at the title at the back end of the season. It's the last round. There's 2 rounds of finals to go. They're literally 1 win out of a grand final.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best thing about this comp at the minute is anyone can make that grand final. Anyone can win it.
And the Eels have been there. They've played in the last 3 grand finals. So
yeah, they certainly have. And up against the Warriors and all 3 of those times, anyone could have won those games. So going into those games, you have no idea who's going to win. Last year was one of the all-time great grand finals to watch. It was probably doesn't get spoken about as much as some of the other stuff, but it was just an outstanding game. And sometimes it's unfortunate that one team has to lose. It can be that good.
yeah, they really had a strong first half, the Eels, in the grand final last year. I think it was 20-0 at half time.
Yeah, look, and that can be. That can be a blessing or it can be nasty. And I've been there myself. And sometimes if you're in front that much, you kind of don't know what to do. You do. You know what to do. But actually getting the job done and finishing it off can prove difficult because you feel like you've done the job, but you've still got a fair bit of time to go.
Still got to defend.
Yeah, it can be quite... Sometimes it's good to be 6 down instead of 6 up, at half
Something
time.
to chase.
Yeah, it's a different thing, so...
Yeah. So, as we say, round 9 has just... So, having a look here at the games from round 9 last week. Friday night games as well.
Yeah, been first time in a long time this year, and we've grown so much that we have to play on 2 days. And the senior men seem to enjoy the Friday nights and allows them to play their footy and have the rest of the weekend to themselves. And look, it's been a bit of a hit, and the clubs are telling me that they want to see some juniors on Friday nights and they want a little bit more of it. So... watch this space, and hopefully next year we'll get some kids playing under lights. So.
Awesome. It's always exciting to play under lights. It's a different atmosphere. It's a different feel.
Well, I'm 45, and I can tell you the very first place I ever played a night game was, and I still remember it to this day, it's Ebbett Noble, and I'd never played under lights in my life. And we the kids from Broken Hill in India and Wilcannia, we thought it was State of Origin. That's how we felt at 16-year-old when the lights were on.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it was massive.
Yeah. So that game, round 9, we had the Warriors 36-4 over the Roosters.
Yeah, look, I ran touch on that line with the flag in my pyjamas, as I say, when I dressed up as a referee. Look, 36-4 sounds convincing, but it was a really solid game of footy. There's a lot of contact in it. Both teams were great. There was no what I'd call crap in it. It was just good contact. 36-4 sounds bad, but the Roosters were in the game for a lot longer than that suggests. Look, the Warriors, 6 wins on the trot.
They're looking good coming into the finals.
Well, as I said before, some teams prime themselves. They looked really pretty average for the first half of the year, but they certainly have hit their straps at the minute.
Excellent. And Sunday we had Brothers over the Bulldogs, 22-6.
Yeah, 22-16, I think it is.
Oh, 16?
Yeah. Look, that was... probably, if you'd asked me what that scoreline was going to be before the game, I'd have probably said a bit more than that. It was a closely fought game, and the Bulldogs, they were down on players. They only had to bear 13 because they've had quite a few injuries this year, but they really put it in front of a home crowd, in front of Ladies' Day as well. So they really took it to Brothers Chura, but as they've done all year, Brothers Chura, they find a way to win games.
Excellent. And as you say, the women in league round, it's good to see that recognition of the ladies, not just the players, but also, the mums that take the players out there.
Yeah, look, I mean, women in league round's outstanding because, we want to recognise all our volunteers and all our people. And it's not just the players, mums and women, and they just played such a part in rugby league over the years, And when people think about it, they probably think canteens and all of that stuff. Well, I can tell you, my mum got me to many a game of football, and she did plenty for me, and she still does at 75,
Yeah.
So, look, we've got some really, really strong female leaders in our league here. We've got a couple, vice presidents, presidents. I spoke before about Marianne Longstaff. So we've just got some outstanding females in our league. They're leaders. They're not just in the game but in life. They're really good. And we've got quite a few girls playing in our juniors. They've got aspirations, and it's up to us to open them up for them, to open up those avenues to get more females involved. And any chance I can, I always thank my wife, because without her supporting what I do, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. And it's the same for most married men.
That's right, mate. Yeah, I know my wife's my biggest fan and always pushes me to do better in my life, and she's just been sensational for my own self-development and pushing me further. And my mum drove me all over the countryside for my games. Some of our games were in Grafton, were 2 hours away. Yeah. She didn't hesitate to jump in the car and come and watch the game because she'd be right there cheering on the sideline.
That's right, and it's funny because my dad would he was a golfer and he liked his rugby league, but he didn't come to as many games as my mum. Mum was always there, but he's passed now. But as he was older, he talked about, I was at all your games, I loved it, and I could just look at me mum looking over going, bullshit.
But mum was always there.
Yeah, mum certainly was.
Yeah, nice. And the other game, we actually had a forfeit from the Eels with the Swans.
Yeah, look, the Eels have had a real tough run with injury. They also have some players that work up, fly in, fly out. So it sort of conspired against them, and they made a decision on that. I don't think that's going to be an issue for them leading into the finals. While they forfeited, that gives them a week's rest to get those injured players back on deck. And the Swans are a physical footy team, let me tell you. So yeah, look, I don't think that'll have any bearing on the finals. The Eels will be. They'll be there and about, chomping at the bit, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah, mate. They know how to bring it when it comes to finals time, that's for sure. Cool. So that was last week's games. And as we said earlier, we've got round 10 coming up, which is the last round of regular season. And then we got 2 rounds of finals and our grand final.
Yeah, so once we get round 10 out of the way, we'll head to Murray Bridge for semi-final 1, which will see our first place team play our fourth place team for a spot in the GF, which will also then see second play third. It's a little different, our final system. We've got 6 teams. We put 4 through. We only have the 2-week finals, so there isn't quite the reward for finishing first. But, when you look at first v 4, first should win. Doesn't always happen. Murray Bridge will be an interesting round of footy when we get up there for the finals. And then the 2 winners will play off on the 20th at the fabulous Air Sports Park out at Elizabeth. First ever grand final out there. And the Roosters will be hosts for the day. So... We can't wait to get out there, and hopefully it'll be a cracker of a game with a big crowd.
Brilliant. Wonderful location up there at Air Sports Park. It's really, really come a long way in the last few years. The Roosters are very, very fortunate to have such a great ground to play on, and we're very fortunate to have this year's grand final played there.
Yeah, we are, and we're expecting a big crowd that'll get there, and I look up there on the screen, and I can't tell you who's going to win through. I think any one of those 4 sides that make the finals could win the game, could win the grand final.
Excellent. And we're encouraging all you guys to get out there and check out this week's rounds, the last round of regular season. Get out there and see some games up at Murray Bridge if you're up that way. And, sorry, where did you say the next round?
So this round 10's Friday night, 7:30 kickoff at...
LJ Lewis Reserve?
Yeah, LJ Lewis. That's the senior men's game between Eels and Bulldogs. Then on the Sunday, we're back at LJ Lewis again for our junior day, which leads into our last 2 senior men's games at 2 o'clock, which would see, I reckon, Swans playing the Warriors, which will be, it's a match of the round, without a doubt, that one. That'll be hard fought. And then at 3:20, we'll see the Roosters finish up their season against the Brothers Chura, and from there, it'll be all systems pointing towards Murray Bridge next week for semi-final 1.
Happy days. Get along to those games if you can, guys, and keep in touch with all the news for NRL SA right here on the Rampage page, Rampage podcast.
Absolutely. Definitely. Yes.
Well, thanks for coming in and having a chat with us, Kelso. We really appreciate you being here and all your knowledge that you bring to rugby league here in South Australia.
Thanks, guys. Look, keep up the good work. This has been really good to be on, and I could talk all day about rugby league. I always say that word lucky, and if I fell over on a rugby league field and took my last breath, I'd be okay with that. It's a great game, and it's full of great people, and keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kelso. Much appreciated. Well, thanks for joining us here at the Rampage podcast for another round of rugby league action. Thank you, Darren, for all that you've done.
Most welcome, and that was a great interview with Kelso, and we've invited him back, so hopefully he'll be back in the studio very soon.
Certainly, mate. Kelso's a great bloke, and he does so much for the game, and he's really passionate about what he does. And so to have a chat with him is just a real honour, and we'll definitely have him back again for more rugby league action.
Excellent. And you can catch this episode and our 3 past episodes, plus our interview with Darren Walters on Spotify and on all the other great podcast platforms.
Thank you, Darren, and we'll see you on the sideline.
Absolutely.
Go the Rams. Bah!
Adelaide to bring it out from their own line. And met by some very willing Auckland defence. And pushed back a couple of metres. Darren Wotto just goes from dubbing half to pick up Darren Doherty. 25 metres out from his own line.
As now the Adelaide Rams make their way out onto Marathon Stadium for the first time.